You might have remembered from history class learning about the Greek and Roman gods of antiquity, and you wondered to yourself, where did these things come from? I mean, did someone just invent these? Why is it there's a god like Neptune or Zeus? You got Zeus or Jupiter referring to Greek and the Romans, and you had, Juno, Poseidon or Neptune, god of the sea. You're like, where do these gods come from? Did they? And of course, what was interesting about it is you may have asked yourself, it seemed like they have very elaborate stories. Is this just some sort of work of fiction that they just worked into and started worshiping them? And that's what maybe some who are skeptics would assume. They would just say to themselves, they just made them up and started worshiping them. That doesn't really make sense if you think about it. You know what I mean? Why would you just make up a god and start worshiping it, right? But some people just accepted this idea. Oh, you just made a god and just started worshiping it. Would you do that? Would you just make up a god and start worshiping it? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't start doing that because it doesn't make any sense. And of course, we were taught in school evolution and how people in the distant past were just not very, they didn't have a lot up here, folks. Bunch of rocks up here. That's why they make up gods and worship them, right? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, you look at the past, you look at 100 years ago, you'll see that the actual tests they had in school were way more difficult than you see today. Today, oh, look, Joey did a good job. Let's just give him a smiley face. He's smart. Everybody's smart today. You know, it's not like the old days. I mean, 100, 200 years ago, tests were way more difficult. I think 12th graders probably couldn't do what a 5th grader could do back then in some cases. You know what I mean? So, to say that people in the distant past were not smarter or not smart is pretty ridiculous if you think about it on its face value. You have very elaborate works from the ancient past. You have Shakespeare. You can just go farther back. You have philosophers like Plato. Yeah, he was not very intelligent, right? No, actually, he was very intelligent. So these arguments that we've accepted make literally no sense if you think about them. A lot of people just assume they made these gods up, but in reality, these gods were angels, okay, or the watchers, okay, from antiquity. And what you learn is that in the good book, it actually talks about these as well. You just didn't know about it. It's called the Divine Council. I'm going to show you where it talks about this in the good book. It literally talks about the exact same thing. Okay, and this is just merely a story of the original story that's been passed down that may have been modified or corrupted a little bit. And also maybe gives you some details about these watchers that sort of fell, right? Kind of gives you an idea of what kind of people they were or what kind of beings they were. These gods. And they were gods with a small g. They had powers much more than you or I have. And, this is basically what they were. And they were given regions. We're going to go over all that here. All right. I wanted to show you kind of an example of how this is just like the deluge story. And actually, matter of fact, that's the context of these. The Council of Gods before the deluge. Okay. This is really interesting because if you look at the ancient past, you look at ancient history, and it all correlates. Okay. It all correlates with the good book. It's just, interestingly, someone decided you should know this. Someone decided you're not allowed to know these things. So they've removed certain books and things. You may say to yourself, well, they were not inspired. Fine. I mean, maybe they weren't inspired to the level of the 66, books, right? You may tell yourself that, and maybe it's partially true. I mean, in some cases, that may be the case. But I mean, in the case of the first book of Enoch, I would say you're wrong for numerous reasons. And I could get into that here, but I'm not going to. There's actually an ancient discovery recently, or not too long ago, where they found a manuscript that was dated well before AD, in I think about 200, 300 BC at minimum. and there's very clear predictions in it that are undeniable that happened when Jesus was here. So I mean, that's a completely different topic. We're not trying to get in that here, but at any rate, if you look at the divine council throughout all these different religions, they all have very striking similarities. You have all the major cultures around the world, very much like the deluge, where you had all major cultures with a very similar story of a gigantic flood, right, in ancient history. And the Council of Gods, you have the same exact thing happening. You have all around the world stories of essentially gods over different regions. And there's a reason for this. Matter of fact, it even says it in various passages that they were given regions. So these watchers were given regions. They were actually over regions. And then they decided to rebel. And this is what led to what we see happening or transpiring throughout history. You can see here in Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, Egyptian, Canaanite, Hebrew, Chinese, Celtic, ancient Greek, ancient Roman, Norse. They all had these divine councils. And a lot of people have no clue that even the Hebrews had them. And like I said, a lot of this was hidden. A lot of this is hidden. That's what we're going to be getting into in this video. I just wanted to start it off with that. Matter of fact, even rather interestingly, when you go to science, you have the solar system. The planets get their names from these Greek and Roman gods, or actually more particularly Roman gods. That's rather curious if you think about it as well, considering the fact that these gods came from the stars and are usually commonly referred to as stars in the good book. Yet, and they somehow got their names on moving, as they would call them, wandering stars. The wandering stars are the planets. Strangely, they got their names put on those planets. Oh, that's kind of weird. Oh, kind of strange. So, it's interesting, what is going on here with all this, right? So you may be asking yourself, and I have lots of things to show you here. I just want to try to get some of this stuff moved out of the way. All right, so let's get into this. Okay, so starting off, I wanted to just mention about Eden. Okay, we have here Dr. Heiser. He has done a number of videos on this topic. He's written books on this topic about the fact that we actually have in the Old Testament where there are two gods or two powers. And this was known in the ancient times, but has been lost in these times. As a matter of fact, he's speaking to a group of people that should know. We're talking Israelites here, and they don't even have a clue about this theology because it's something they don't want to teach anymore. So there was two powers. You had the angel of Yahweh, which was the secondary power that would always come down and visit with people. And of course, this is the King of Kings in the old, as you would say, part of the good book, right? So I found that to be rather curious. A lot of people don't even know that. Now, this is where you see a lot of this, I don't know if you want to call this modification of passages, or if you want to call this, do you want to say this is intentional? Do you want to say that they're just picking the scroll that they like, because maybe one scroll says it one way and one scroll says it another way? But actually, I would just say it's probably more likely intentional, that you have, and let's see if I can get this on the screen in a different way. Here we go. No, that's not what I want. Here, this is, okay, let's just go with this one. So here you have a passage in Deuteronomy, and you can see how they changed it from sons of God to sons of Israel. And so this is a very common thing that you see in the Masoretic text. And there's a reason why they kept doing this. They don't want people to know certain things. It's like if you could imagine that, does that even make sense? Like, you have these people that are over this ancient text that your entire community reveres, and for some reason they think they can change it. They can modify it to make it say what they want it to say. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of this. I've done videos on this type of stuff in the past, and it makes you wonder about those people. Maybe they don't even believe in it. They're just like, oh, we can use this for control. Let's just change what it says. You know what I mean? Kind of interesting, isn't it? So now, like I said, does the good book say there are other gods? Yes, actually it does. Okay? It does. We're talking small g. Now, I don't like using the word gods, but you can call them watchers. You can call them whatever you want. Okay? It doesn't really matter. They're obviously not the top one. Right? It is not really rocket science, but what you have is various passages that talk about the divine council. Here's an example right here. Elohim stands in the divine assembly. That's referring to multiple divine beings that have obviously some sort of power and legislature, or whatever you want to call it. He administers judgment in the midst of gods, and they call them gods. Okay? And there's even a passage where you have these prosperity guys, they try to use it out of context in Psalms where it says, ye are gods. Look, see right there, it says you and I are gods. No, it doesn't actually. It's talking about these watchers. Okay, it's not talking about you and I. We are not gods. It's talking about these watchers that had obviously supernatural powers. We're not talking about a Marvel movie here, although those are probably made after these. And this is what's so interesting to me, because of course it would make sense that Satan would want to take knowledge from you so you wouldn't understand what's going on around you. But yeah, like you have Thor and all these guys in these Marvel movies, right? Those were actually watchers. They were angels that fell, okay? They were over different regions and decided they wanted to be worshipped rather than the true God. This is basically what's going on. And these stories probably have some elements of truth in them. I don't know how much or what. These are obviously myths from Greek and Roman religion in the past, and we don't know how much has changed. We don't know if things, you know what I mean? I mean, you can tell if you, obviously it's about the same watchers, each one. You have all these different religions talking pretty much about the same watchers, most likely, or maybe in some cases they're talking about different ones. And you can see how they're correlated. They even have very similar names. Like I said, you can go over to here we go. Here's an example, and you can even see how Rome has Zeus and Jupiter. These are the same god. They're able to match them. You know, Hera and Juno, Poseidon and Neptune. So these clearly are individuals that are over regions, over different parts and aspects of Earth, and you know, maybe the story's been corrupted in different respects. We don't know, right? But these were actual beings over regions, and they were set over regions, and I can actually show you. There's actually passages that say this. As we go through this, maybe let's see. I got so many things open here. Okay, let's see if I can find some of this. There's actually one of these documents that has a ton of this. Let me see if I can go find that. Okay, so that's that. Oh, it's fun. I was going to actually talk about the Garden of Eden as well. And it talks about that. I want to get into that in a minute. Not yet. What was this one about? No, that's not related to what we're specifically talking about here either. It's kind of related. All right. So maybe this one. Is this it? Okay. So you have the word Elohim. Now that's used for a lot of things. This is the divine council. Okay, so let's see if we have some of it here. Okay. Here we go. Acknowledge Yahweh, you sons of God. B'nai Elohim. Acknowledge Yahweh's majesty and power. So there's obviously a problem with that. Some of them would not acknowledge it. Now the day came when the sons of God came to present themselves before Yahweh. When the morning stars sang in chorus, and all the sons of God, B'nai Elohim, shouted for joy. You can see here, it's all throughout. It's just been hidden. Okay? The heavens praise your wonders, your faithfulness too in the assembly of the holy ones. For who in the skies above can compare to Yahweh? You can see here in the council of the holy ones, God is greatly feared. So you can see here, it's all over the place. You just never see it. You know what I mean? Presides in the great assembly. What is this great assembly? It's literally the pantheon. It's the divine council. It's all these gods. They're all in these higher heavenly realms. And some were set over regions and aspects of earth. And then they decided they wanted to be worshipped instead. And it even says about this, renders judgment among the gods. So he ends up judging them because they're not doing their job right, as he appoints them to do. Okay, and these watchers, obviously many of them came down on Mount Hermon. That's what the book of Enoch's all about, and talks about their fall, of course. Even after that, it says that they would never do what the original set did because of the judgment was so great. Right? So it makes sense that you're not seeing necessarily the same aspect, but it does talk about that in the end, as you would say, times we would start seeing this stuff come back because, of course, some of these watchers are released, or actually a lot of them, or all of them. At any rate, getting back onto the topic at hand, we're trying to talk about the pantheon, the divine council. We know it mostly from Greek and Roman mythology, but in reality, though, it's all through the good book, folks. I mean, we're talking every other passage talking about things like this in the just, it's everywhere. Let me just show you. I don't know why I'm getting confused here or messed up. All right, here we go. Come, let us go down and confuse their language. Yeah, that's why. So we'll not be able to understand each other. Here you have let us. Who is us? Okay, this is the council. It's not just Yahweh. It's the council. It's all these, Greek gods, or maybe it's not them exactly. You know what I'm saying? Because there's like different sets of them, but you have all these watchers doing what he asks. They all go down as a team. Council going down and doing these things. It's like a Marvel movie, except for in the ancient past. You know what I mean? It's just hilarious actually thinking about it like that. But I mean, that's what all these movies are. It's like, look, we know what's really happened in the past. You don't. We're showing you on movies, and you don't even have a clue. You just think it's a Marvel movie, right? I mean, obviously it's set in modern day, but you know what I mean. So, here we go. I heard, let's see, here we go. I mean, there's tons of these. They're all over the place. People of the ancient Near East understood that Yahweh said, let us. He was referring to the divine council. So whenever it said, let us go out and down and do this. You see these passages everywhere. Then God said, let us, make humankind. So, you have all these different passages here all over the place. And right here, this is a really good one. This is what I'm talking about right here. This is kind of backing up a lot of what I just said. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided up mankind, he set the boundaries, we're talking of the peoples, as you would say, according to the number of the sons of God. Okay? This is the one that they try to change. I showed it back here somewhere. Here it is. They try to change it to sons of Israel. This tells you they intentionally tried to make it, they try to cover, as you would say, up what it says. And this ain't the first time. There's a lot of this. They try to change, what do you call it? Not the genealogy, the time frame of the genealogy, so that they could, I mean, they did a lot of this. I mean, they tried to make Melchizedek look like he was from some other aspect of their own history so that they could make an argument. They would do this just to make arguments. They would literally change things to make their own arguments. Like, look, see, we're right. We're the ones that decide what it says anyways. No, actually, you weren't the ones who were inspired that wrote it. You're the ones that are supposed to keep it, and instead you decide to change it. And of course, some people are like, well, let's not blame them. maybe they're just like, accidentally did it. No. This is like so obvious that they did this on purpose. Okay? It's very obvious. They purposely don't want you to know this. Okay? They don't want you to know about the giants. They don't want you to know about the watchers. They don't want you to know about the divine assembly. They don't want you to know about any of this stuff. How it all relates to all the other stuff you see around you. And all these myths, all around the world. They had deluge myths everywhere. Not myths or stories. They had the deluge story everywhere. They had the divine council story everywhere. They had the giants everywhere. You can even pull up history books from 500 years ago, and they talk about giants. They don't talk about them today in your history book, do they? Well, because you just believe whatever they say. You believe what they told you in class, right? And I mean, there's various ancient various famous sayings where people will say, whoever wins rewrites history or writes history. I don't even remember the saying, but you've heard of things like that before. Whoever wins decides what history is, right? Someone decided you didn't need to know about this history. They don't want you to know about it. That all these other religions are based off a corruption of yours. It's hilarious. All these gods, these divine councils of Greek and Roman mythology are literally just stories of the watchers that fell that you are not allowed to know about. Okay? Essentially, someone decided you're not allowed to know this. The Great Assembly, right? So it's all over the place. I don't want to have to read through this. Okay, so like he chooses his area. So like, you have, and this would essentially be Zeus in Greek mythology, right? So you can even correlate them like that, which is hilarious. Like, so you have here Zeus. Zeus is supposed to be the top god. Zeus or Jupiter. It's basically Zeus or Jupiter. So they replaced Yahweh with Zeus or Jupiter. Okay? And he chose this region right here. Okay? And like I read in that passage above, he divided up the nations and gave certain sections to various gods. So that would explain why they have different gods in different regions. Okay? That's why. Because there was a watcher over that region who decided, I should be worshipped. I'm awesome. Look at me. I'm so cool. I got all these powers. Look, I got my own region. I'm just going to tell them I'm a god and just worship me. This is what literally they did. It's pretty hilarious, but that's how it worked. I mean, they're just like humans. They just want to be corrupt leaders. That's pretty much what they are. So you had Zeus or Jupiter on the top, and you have all these different gods in different areas. Now, okay, so Poseidon was over the sea. And this is really interesting with Poseidon or Neptune, because after the deluge, it was Poseidon, Neptune, that was able to sort of kind of take over regions of the earth after the deluge. And you can see this if you look at some of these ancient stories. It talks about the gods of the sea that were able to flourish after the deluge, which makes sense. You would have these hybrids that maybe were living also in the sea. You know what I'm talking about? So you have all these. It makes sense. I mean, if you were going to have certain watchers that would survive, you know what I mean? And of course, some people say maybe it wasn't, worldwide. Maybe it was regional. Maybe it was very large and covered most of the earth. I don't know. You could get into that as well. A lot of people are just like, it's worldwide no matter what, But you could actually make some arguments. I've seen some legitimate arguments that you could make where it was very large but wasn't in the entire world. And there's also some ancient writings, Book of Giants and just other ancient writings where it makes the indication that some of these hybrids were able to somehow survive on a high mountain somewhere. Even though it says all the mountains were covered, maybe it was referring to, the word all. The question is, you got to go into the ancient languages, just like in the case of this. In the case of this, you can see how they hid it in the ancient languages. It's all over the place, but when you read it in English, you don't even notice it. Great assembly. What is a great assembly? It's a pantheon. So, and like the two powers, you have the angel of Yahweh. This was God coming down to earth. Okay, it's the King of Kings before the latter books. You know what I mean? That's all it was. And they hid this philosophy. These people, the scribes, whoever you want to call them, that were in control of this manuscripts, decided you should know about this. You should know about this history. You should know about this teaching. You should know about any of this stuff. They decided it. They decided because they're right. You're not allowed. So that's basically kind of what happened with all that. And it's interesting watching some people try to, certain people think that no, this isn't true. Because they don't, and it's interesting because a lot of people that are teachers today, various congregations, they may have some sort of radio thing they do. Probably know some famous names out there of various people, but they don't even want to look into history. They'll even discourage it. They'll discourage you looking into the early fathers. They'll discourage you from looking into this stuff. Those books are bad. Don't look at Enoch. It's bad. Don't look at any of these books. Just 66 only. Don't look at any of the ones surrounding it that tell you what these are actually saying. That give more context. That they're literally referring to from those 66 books. Don't look at any of the books that the 66 tell you to look at. That tell you more details. Don't look at them. Just believe us. Believe us. We know everything. We're in the 21st century. We got a suit on. We know everything. That's basically what you got going on. Now, like I said, here we go. You have some that completely understand this. A pantheon. They understand the pantheons in Psalms. Psalm 82. Elohim standeth in the congregation of the mighty. Right? So, I mean, it's right there. Okay, they sacrifice to, what is this? Less dim, who are not God, to gods, Elohim, whom they have not known. New gods. Well, I thought there was only one God. Why are they talking about other gods? Gods they haven't known? It's because they were over regions and they were watchers. Okay? So, I mean, I just wanted to kind of go over that. I don't want to rehash that, but I mean, you can see kind of like how these passages are all over the place. And you'll have people with different takes on this. Some are like, this is good. Some are like, no, don't look at this stuff. But it's very obvious that you can start connecting all the dots in history. It's like so obvious. It's like they didn't want you to see this. They didn't want you to know that the deluge was literally a story in every culture. They didn't want you to know that the divine council was literally a story in every culture. Oh, that's kind of weird. They didn't want you to know that in the ancient times that the Hebrews had gods, 2 of them, not 1. 2 powers. Oh, that's kind of weird. They don't want you to know any of this stuff. It's like hilarious. And of course, even today you see this as well. In India, I cover this on video as well. In India, their gods, okay, they actually have had someone, in a sense, rewrite their history from about the 1900s until now. In southern India, there were many congregations that believed the same as you and I, that believed in the good book. And you can even go to some of these now they've been turned into temples. You can go to some of these and see they actually have literally texts from Genesis. You can go to China and they have actually a text that says the same thing as the first book, but it's 1,000 years older, okay, than the first book, the date we have at least. It's hilarious. I've shown it on video. And you're like, this stuff's everywhere. It's everywhere. All these connections are everywhere. They just don't want you to see it. And it's good to have people like Dr. Heiser. He's put some of this together. Actually, he's put a lot of this together. I'd say at least half of this, a lion's share of it. There's other groups out there that have also done it. I've covered various aspects of this. But it's just good to be able to present this, to let people see it. Um, let's see. I was going to talk about some other stuff. I think I mentioned about the planets already, how they named them after these gods, Roman and particularly Roman gods, which are basically the same as the Greek gods, which is the same pantheon, which is the divine council that you see in the good book, just maybe a corrupted version of it. But, you know, is this ironic or not that these watchers were called also stars in various passages? And what are the planets called? They're called wandering stars. Wandering stars. So these watchers were called wandering stars, and then they named the wandering stars after these watchers. So go figure. That's so weird. I can't believe it. Huh. Whoa, it's kind of weird. You know, I mean, it's just hilarious. It's like all right there in front of you for you to see if you want to see it. Now, this was actually this. I didn't even get into this one. I think this is the one where they go through all the passages. There's like a hilarious amount of them here. Holy ones, sons of God, council of the holy ones. You can see it's all over the place. Stars of the morning, literally everywhere. The pantheon. It's directly the pantheon, like the Greek and Roman god pantheon. Council, divine council. It's everywhere. You just didn't know it was there. Okay? And this is what I'm talking about. So I think this guy gets into various rebellions, and he has some ideas he's coming up with here. Actually, this is pretty advanced study here that he's going through. Heavenly and earthly rebellions that are correlated. You know, that whole as a, you know, on earth as in heaven, you know, kind of thing. So it's rather curious, you know what I mean? At any rate, I think I've kind of went into this. Yeah, this was, I already went over this. Yeah, his work, by the way, if you want to go check it out, this is a pretty good book here, Unseen Realm by Heiser. I've listened to it on like audio formats. He actually has a number of them he's written, but that's one of his great books that he wrote. Go check that out. And I think that's pretty much. Oh, also, I guess you could say also this as well. You could get into origins of Christmas and how some of this also relates to it. It's just curious, the whole thing. And I've actually done a huge thing on Christmas, how it's half. I mean, it is literally half pagan and half not. A lot of people think it's 100%, but it's not. The more you look into it, the more you realize certain aspects of it are literally not bad. So, but I mean, if you go through all the holidays, you actually find some of them are more pagan than not. This one's pretty much almost, I would say it's almost, well, it might be a little bit more than 50-50. But there's an aspect of it that a lot of people think it isn't. At any rate, that's another topic as well. Also, I wanted to mention links in the description for all this. I have a merchandise store here. As you can see here, we got our new, as you would say, Prez. Got a lot of great products with him on it here in the store. Got some other funny ones as well. Links in the description for this, folks. And again, if you want to get more videos like this one here, you're going to want to check out my website because I have hundreds of videos like this here. I wouldn't say, well, I would have at least 100 like this here over on my website. Okay, links in the description for this as well, grvideos.com. And a lot of them are free. I got, I don't know, maybe 200 videos that are free, I think, something like that. I'm trying to add more here. I got like another 50 or something to add. I also have a membership section where it's $4.95 a month where I have some of my better videos and also more recent ones. I also have some really great ones also in the free video. I have some of my really good ones over there as well, though. Again, links in the description for that as well. And I cover a lot of stuff. Some of the ones I even mentioned. I mentioned about the history of India and China and some other ones. And ancient history that like literally no one knows about. I cover that over there. Things that will just, you'll be surprised. It'll blow your mind. And I've covered a lot of other really interesting topics as well. Also, because of what we've been seeing happening around us, they're talking about supply, as you would say, shortages and things of that nature. And actually, Like I said, we're starting to see a lot more of that with hyper, as you would say, inflation. I've seen it also just in my local store here, Kroger. But, you know, it'd be wise for you guys to also get this here, folks. We're talking about 25-year shelf life storable food. Prepare with Godrules.com. Links in the description for this as well. At any rate, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and thanks for watching. This topic of Buddhism is very intriguing. Here we have Buddha sitting under the pipal tree, which he attained enlightenment after obtaining the knowledge on how to reach nirvana. He remained beneath the tree another week, contemplating the nature of the tree and admiring its beauty. You see here snakes giving wisdom to Buddha on how to attain enlightenment. You also have a snake underneath him as well, coiled up, kind of reminiscent of the Garden of Eden, with the snake there tempting Adam and Eve with knowledge. Now, this is not the only thing you can find like this. There's actually a lot of this. Usually the snakes are almost always in these type of pictures of Buddha. Not all of them, but often. You also have the dragon, although this is difficult to see here. This is a dragon's face. Dragons are often very common with Buddha pictures. This is a celestial Buddha here. I'm wondering if these are the supposed to be the snakes themselves, because often it will have little snakes pointing in. And this is sort of like more dragons behind him. Here you see demons around him, often with bird faces and such. And I'm going to play a video in a minute here from a guy who's basically exposing Buddha. You see this demon above him, which looks like Baphomet. It's also both sexes. But it has a bird's face and bird's feet, which also commonly you'll find certain older depictions of the devil as having a bird's face. Okay, and this actually also echoes back to Egyptian hieroglyphics of Hermes or Thoth, which is the false god of knowledge. Maybe I should pull that up. You have the emerald tablets of Thoth, which were found at the top of the pyramid at Giza, and you have this fallen angel. I'm suspecting a cherubim that was giving this knowledge to Hermes Trismegistus, which was a prophet, alleged child of this god. Okay, and these emerald tablets are written in Phoenician, which is Paleo-Hebrew. Paleo-Hebrew is what the original Hebrew Old Testament was written in. It's considered the language of heaven. Of course, if you have fallen angels, they would speak the original language of heaven, which would be Paleo-Hebrew. I'm trying to find a better picture of how it's written, so you get an idea there. It's written on an emerald tablet, literally. And you know, a lot of people think, oh, this is just fairy tales. No, actually, it has a bird's face, the exact same as this. This has a bird's face. Okay? And I've already found actually some connections, not even really looking a lot into this. You see a lot of connections. I read some stuff already that connects it sort of back to the Egyptian religions. The lotus, the universal symbol of the lotus, which is what Buddha is sitting on here. Okay? And I think it's sort of a false Holy Spirit. Okay? You know how the devil likes to counterfeit everything. Something I forgot to mention real quick here. The lotus is a twofold type of divine and human hermaphrodite. So again, we have this Baphomet type of concept. You see here. Trying to get it to where it shows it. Here we go. It's Baphomet concept of hermaphrodite, with being dual sex, so basically pointing to that. And then also, it mentioned about the sun being the center. Where is it at? Here we go. The universe evolving from a central sun. Now, this may not sound like anything to people when they just read this and are not aware of sort of the history of this mystery, but the Emerald Tablets of Thoth say the exact same thing. I pulled those up a minute ago. Here we go. They say that everything comes from the sun, S-U-N, okay? And this is, Nimrod. Nimrod is the sun god. Semiramis is the moon god, okay? And Copernicus and Galileo were both Hermeticists, which means they were followers of Hermes or Thoth. They're the same false god, the false god of knowledge. The knowledge, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Buddha sitting under the tree of knowledge and good and evil. Okay, see how this stuff all ties in? Copernicus and Galileo both were reading the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and that's where they got their concept of heliocentrism from, that the sun is in the center, and everything worships the sun or derives from the sun. Okay? This is where Copernicus originally got his idea to have the earth spinning around the sun, was from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Okay? And you can see here, this is the lotus symbol, which is sort of universal between all these various religions. And the lotus symbol is saying we came from a central sun. It also it points to this hermaphrodite being symbology. And so we have here the lotus, and we have here this demon, which is a hermaphrodite, which is equivalent in symbology. So that lotus flower or this are equivalent, and both of them are in these various Buddha murals or paintings or whatever you want to call them. So I just thought I'd point that out real quick. Okay, 4 angels or genie, 4 quarters of heaven. So we see here, just like what we see with the pseudepigraphia, like the Book of Enoch and all these books that the church essentially tried to close the doors on. I mean, the Book of Enoch was pretty much lost until it was the late 1700s, I think it was, when it was rediscovered in Africa. The Catholic Church pretty much got rid of it. And 2nd Esdras chapter 13 predicts that they would get rid of these books. These books would be hidden. We call it also the Apocrypha, and the term Apocrypha means hidden. Talk a lot about the 4 quarters of heaven, talk about fallen angels and genies, and this is where you get the connection. If you go far enough back, a lot of these ancient texts say very similar things. It's just you get perversions, like the Sumerian tablets have perversions of what really occurred, okay, in the Garden of Eden. So you have the devil counterfeiting what was really happening in the Garden of Eden. You have the devil counterfeiting what happened in the flood. That's why you have numerous flood stories. You have the Sumerian flood story. You have I think it's about 40 different flood stories from all major cultures around the world. And I think a lot of that can be contributed to the fact that, at the Tower of Babel got confused the languages, and they all dispersed with the languages of each region, and they had still the same false gods. They came from Sumer. This is where the Tower of Babel was. This is where the Sumerian tablets were found. They came from there. They all dispersed. Same false gods. Same false Babylonian trinity. But they took it to their whatever region they went to, and then they built their religion from there. And then a lot of that ancient stuff was lost. And what you see today is Buddhism. Actually, Buddhism came out of Hinduism. I'm going to cover that in a second. But you see Hinduism. You see elements of other Eastern religions like Taoism, Shintoism even, where they claim to be descendants of gods. And this is also like the Egyptians with their religion. With Buddhism, Buddha actually means more than one thing. In Buddhism, in Hinduism, the term Buddha is the avatar of the god Vishnu. Okay, so what Buddhism basically is a heterodoxy or a heretic of Hinduism because they reject certain parts of Hinduism. It's considered heterodoxy because they're non-theistic. Okay, but then at the same time, the Buddhists, what they did is they basically declared Buddha to be the avatar of Vishnu, so they're claiming he's a god. That's why they have all these idols of Buddha everywhere. So even though they claim they take away all the deities, they still retain one deity. At the time of Constantine, 300 in the 300 AD range, when they basically melded Sol Invictus worship with Christianity, sun worship, and Sol Invictus, even after Constantine allegedly became a Christian, he was still talking about these false gods, as if they still existed, and he was still revering them, and even had coinage with him next to Sol Invictus on the coinage, and changed Christian holidays to become pagan holidays, Easter and Christmas, which are on winter solstice on pagan, okay, which a lot of Christians are not aware of still, obviously. They think they're Christian holidays, but they again came from this paganism. So the devil was able to get this Babylonian religion into all the religions. He tried to. With Christianity, obviously, there's many Christians that reject all the paganism in Christianity, right? Matter of fact, a lot of the Protestants that came to America were very much against Easter and Christmas. A lot of Christians are not aware of that. Catholicism brought it back into America and made it popular. Now Protestants celebrate Christmas and Easter just like everyone else does. So, but I'm kind of going all over the place. But I wanted to just hit mainly on Buddhism, but I wanted to kind of tie in some of the other religions and show you how all this stuff points back to Babylon, because it all does. Okay, Buddhism came from Hinduism. Hinduism came from the Tower of Babel. They also have the mother-child connection with some very ancient understandings of Hinduism. They have the mother-child, the Trinity, the false Trinity, the Father, Mother, Child Trinity. Even in Taoism and some of these other Eastern religions, they have it also. It's pretty much into everything. A lot of people are not aware of this, but I just wanted to kind of hit on this real quick, and then I'm going to show a video. This guy, he exposes this even more, the satanic influence in Buddhism, where basically it was demons giving knowledge to Buddha. And he even asked Buddhist monks about this. Okay, so it's not as if he's just making this up. He's actually asking them, what is this right here? It's a demon. They even call it a demon. Okay? This topic of Buddhism is very intriguing. Here we have Buddha sitting under the pipal tree, which he attained enlightenment after obtaining the knowledge on how to reach nirvana. He remained beneath the tree another week, contemplating the nature of the tree and admiring its beauty. You see here snakes giving wisdom to Buddha and how to attain enlightenment. You also have a snake underneath him as well, coiled up, kind of reminiscent of the Garden of Eden, with the snake there tempting Adam and Eve with knowledge. Now, this is not the only thing you can find like this. There's actually a lot of this. Usually the snakes are almost always in these type of pictures of Buddha. Not all of them, but often. You also have the dragon, although this is difficult to see here. This is a dragon's face. Dragons are often very common with Buddha pictures. This is a celestial Buddha here. I'm wondering if these are supposed to be the snakes themselves, because often it will have little snakes pointing in. And this is sort of like more dragons behind him. Here you see demons around him, often with bird faces and such. And I'm going to play a video in a minute here from a guy who's basically exposing Buddha. You see this demon above him, which looks like Baphomet. It's also both sexes. But it has a bird's face and bird's feet, which also commonly you'll find certain older depictions of the devil as having a bird's face. Okay, and this actually also echoes back to Egyptian hieroglyphics of Hermes or Thoth, which is the false god of knowledge. Maybe I should pull that up. You have the emerald tablets of Thoth, which were found at the top of the pyramid at Giza, and you have this fallen angel. I'm suspecting a cherubim that was giving this knowledge to Hermes Trismegistus, which was a prophet, alleged child of this god. Okay, and these emerald tablets are written in Phoenician, which is Paleo-Hebrew. Paleo-Hebrew is what the original Hebrew Old Testament was written in. It's considered the language of heaven. Of course, if you have fallen angels, they would speak the original language of heaven, which would be Paleo-Hebrew. I'm trying to find a better picture of how it's written, so you get an idea there. It's written on an emerald tablet, literally. And you know, a lot of people think, oh, this is just fairy tales. No, actually, it has a bird's face, the exact same as this. This has a bird's face. Okay? And I've already found actually some connections, not even really looking a lot into this. You see a lot of connections. I read some stuff already that connects it sort of back to the Egyptian religions. The lotus, the universal symbol of the lotus, which is what Buddha is sitting on here. Okay? And I think it's sort of a false Holy Spirit. Okay? You know how the devil likes to counterfeit everything. Something I forgot to mention real quick here. The lotus is a twofold type of divine and human hermaphrodite. So again, we have this Baphomet type of concept. You see here. I'm trying to get it to where it shows it. Here we go. It's Baphomet concept of hermaphrodite, with being dual sex, so basically pointing to that. And then also it mentioned about the sun being the center. Where is it at? Here we go. The universe evolving from a central sun. Now, this may not sound like anything to people when they just read this and are not aware of sort of the history of this mystery, but the emerald tablets of Thoth say the exact same thing. I pulled those up a minute ago. Here we go. They say that everything comes from the sun, S-U-N, okay? And this is, you know, Nimrod. Nimrod is the sun god. Semiramis is the moon god, okay? And Copernicus and Galileo were both Hermeticists, which means they were followers of Hermes or Thoth. They're the same false god, the false god of knowledge. You know, the knowledge, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Buddha sitting under the tree of knowledge and good and evil. Okay, see how this stuff all ties in? Copernicus and Galileo both were reading the emerald tablets of Thoth, and that's where they got their concept of heliocentrism from, that the sun is in the center and everything worships the sun or derives from the sun. Okay? This is where Copernicus originally got his idea to have the earth spinning around the sun, was from the emerald tablets of Thoth. Okay? And you can see here, this is the lotus symbol, which is sort of universal between all these various religions. And the lotus symbol is saying we came from a central sun. It also is, it points to this hermaphrodite being symbology. And so we have here we have here the lotus, and we have here this demon, which is a hermaphrodite, which is equivalent in symbology. So that lotus flower or this are equivalent, and both of them are in these various Buddha murals or paintings or whatever you want to call them. So I just thought I'd point that out real quick. Okay, four angels of, or genie, four quarters of heaven. So we see here, just like what we see with the pseudepigraphia, like the Book of Enoch, and all these books that the church essentially tried to close the doors on. I mean, the Book of Enoch was pretty much lost until it was the late 1700s, I think it was, when it was rediscovered in Africa. The Catholic Church pretty much got rid of it. And Second Esdras chapter 13 predicts that they would get rid of these books. These books would be hidden. We call it also the Apocrypha, and the term Apocrypha means hidden. Talk a lot about the four quarters of heaven, talk about fallen angels and genies, and this is where you get the connection. If you go far enough back, a lot of these ancient texts say very similar things. It's just you get perversions, like the Sumerian tablets have perversions of what really occurred, okay, in the Garden of Eden. So you have the devil counterfeiting what was really happening in the Garden of Eden. You have the devil counterfeiting what happened in the flood. That's why you have numerous flood stories. You have the Sumerian flood story. You have I think it's about 40 different flood stories from all major cultures around the world. And I think a lot of that can be contributed to the fact that, at the Tower of Babel got confused the languages, and they all dispersed with the languages of each region, and they had still the same false gods. They came from Sumer. This is where the Tower of Babel was. This is where the Sumerian tablets were found. They came from there. They all dispersed. Same false gods. Same false Babylonian trinity. But they took it to their whatever region they went to, and then they built their religion from there. And then a lot of that ancient stuff was lost. And what you see today is Buddhism. Actually, Buddhism came out of Hinduism. I'm going to cover that in a second. But you see Hinduism. You see elements of other Eastern religions like Taoism, Shintoism even, where they claim to be descendants of gods. And then this is also like the Egyptians with their religion.